Happy 4th of July. Eury Perez just had his best start of the season. We're going to preview Week 16 and much more up next on a Kokomo Friday.
Alcantara, Soroka, you look so good in Boca. Peralta, Manoa, bounce back for Aarondola. Giolito, Castillo, Yoshida, Mosu,
Happy Kokomo Friday and happy 4th of July. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today. On the show, we'll have players about to light it up in the second half. Big pitching performances from Robbie Ray and Eury Perez. We'll preview Week 16. Also, happy birthday to Chris. Make sure to hit him up on socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, wherever you find him. Hit him up. Send him a happy birthday. Let's jump in.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
All right, Scotty. Who you got? Player of the night.
I got to go with my guy, Addison Barger, who you may remember. It was mere days ago that I assured you, even though he was in the doldrums right now, I was insisting that you still roster and cherish Addison Barger because I was so certain that he would come through. And well, he's been coming through here. Last 3 games, 6 for 9, 2 doubles and 2 home runs. On Thursday in particular, he did about half of that damage, 3 for 4 with a home run and 2 doubles. He is now batting on the year, Addison Barger, 272 and slugging 521. I mean, those are perfectly respectable numbers in their own right. Good, you might even say, 272, 521. His expected batting average, 291. His expected slug, 533, even higher. Spectacular numbers, you might even say. And, anybody can look at the bright red bars on his Baseball Savant page and say, yeah, this is a really talented player. His exit velocity is 95th percentile average exit velocity. Those expected stats I was telling you about, basically all 90th percentile. And of course, we all know it's not as simple as that either. We see players with that kind of profile still underachieve sometimes. But the addition this year of that pull air rate, I think, especially when you go look back at some of the historic underachievers by the StatCast metrics, you'll see that a lot of times it comes down to that. Those expected stats aren't really accounting for the spray angle off of the bat, and it makes a world of difference. So, okay, yeah, bright red bars for Addison Barger, but maybe he's underachieved because the pull air rate is low. Nope, not the case. His pull air rate is bright red as well, 24%. So it seemed inevitable to me that he would come around. And you know what? It's happening.
It is happening right now for Addison Barger, who, along with George Springer, just destroyed my Yankees, a 4-game sweep, Blue Jays sole possession of first place. So shout out to them and all Blue Jays fans everywhere. Barger, 59% rostered, third base and outfield eligible. And honestly, I think probably more useful at third base right now, just based on the way the position has played out, based on the fact that we just lost Max Muncy. He's placed in the IL and expected to miss at least the next 6 weeks. So that kind of feels like the most obvious Max Muncy replacement, Scott. Bad timing. Muncy was on fire, but boom, if you could just replace him with Addison Barger, that feels like a pretty good swap.
Yeah, I think Barger needs to be rostered regardless of your need, to be perfectly honest. I think as much enthusiasm as I've had for Jonathan Aranda over the years, and you feel like, oh, I should have listened to Scott on that Jonathan Aranda guy. I'm telling you right now that Addison Barger might be just as good.
All right. Well, speaking of those Blue Jays real quick, wanted to mention George Springer's week here as well. 3 for 4 with a double dong on Thursday. In 4 games against the Yankees, he had 8 hits, 4 homers, 7 runs, 11 RBI, and 1 steal. Did all of that again in 4 games. He's now batting .281 with 15 homers, 10 steals, and an .891 OPS. So he did have a bit of a lull there in early to mid-June, but he has picked things back up, and he is back on track and really having a resurgent season. One of his, probably the best that we've seen in the last handful of years from George Springer. So
yeah,
shout out to him. Great season there.
Yeah, you don't expect that at age 35 to have this big of a bounce back. Another thing you don't expect from a 35-year-old, career high average exit velocity for George Springer this year. He's got a lot of history there. In fact, has his career spanned the entire history of StatCast? It has. And this is the highest average exit velocity he's ever had.
Yeah. And I brought this up to Chris the other day. I was watching the Yankees-Blue Jays game, the Blue Jays broadcast for some reason, and they were talking about Springer consciously trying to lift the ball more this season, and it is reflected in the stats. I believe the fly ball and barrel rate are both his highest since 2021. So he's trying to lift the ball and clearly hitting the ball hard. And when you do that, good things are happening here for George Springer. Let's get into my player of the night. It is Eury Perez, who had his best start of the season. 6 shutout innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, had 20 whiffs on 80 pitches. Great matchup right now. Minnesota Twins not really hitting the ball, but overall still a great performance here. Season highs in innings and strikeouts. First time he's even completed 5 innings this season, let alone 6. So nice sign here from Eury Perez. The fastball was otherworldly. 13 of his 20 whiffs came on that pitch. It had 18 inches of IVB as well. And surprisingly, 74% rostered, Scott. So that means, maybe after a little bit of a rough start, which we should have expected, young guy coming back from Tommy John surgery. Maybe he was dropped in a few leagues. He's at Cincinnati, at Baltimore next week. So I think if anybody dropped Eury Perez, or if he's out there in a shallow league, change that. Go at him now.
Yeah, he's too available, and he's my number 2 sleeper pitcher for next week after this start. Now, the Twins lineup has been pretty gross lately, so you got to factor that in. He really leaned into his fastball and slider in this one, basically ditched his third pitch, the curveball, which had been missing no bats. Like it had like a 7% whiff rate, which is terrible for any pitch, but especially a breaking ball. So it seemed to work. And it kind of oddly, since the velocity was down, but he has great stuff. Nobody should be doubting that for Eury Perez. It's totally understandable that he might have a rough transition back to the league after coming back from Tommy John surgery. But I think, maybe the Twins lineup accelerated it, but I think it was inevitable that we'd see Eury Perez be good again before the end of this season.
I do have a segment coming up later on. Players I think are about to light it up here in the second half. And Eury Perez, I think totally, fits in that conversation. Obviously you can add him. I don't know how easy it will be to trade for him after his best start of the season, but yes, I do think it could be a pretty big second half here for Eury Perez. Wanted to give a shout out to Robbie Ray as well, who had a dominant performance, tossed the second complete game of his career. This one at the
D-backs. The second. That surprises me. As long as he's been around, former Cy Young winner, just the second complete game of his career.
I guess, with as many walks as he's had in his career, probably not all that efficient going. He used to go deep into starts, but, obviously 9 innings is pretty tough for anybody, especially someone who's not that efficient. So, second complete game of Robbie Ray's career. He had 7 strikeouts to 1 walk, 14 whiffs on 102 pitches against the D-backs. Kind of an uneven one here. Look, I don't want to take anything away. You'll take a complete game anytime you can get it, but he did give up 12 hard hits in this game, 93.7 average exit velocity, but He leaned a little bit more into the slider and the curve. Both of those pitches were good. Didn't throw the fastball as much. Robbie Ray, rocky start to the season. Again, he was, kind of coming back from some injuries the past couple of years. But when you look at it, 3 earned runs or fewer in 17 of 18 starts. He's down to a 2.68 ERA, 109 WHIP.
Yeah, I don't think
must-start pitcher.
I don't think anybody's thought about that Rocky start in a long time. I see you and I both have him in our top 15 starting pitchers rest of season, and Chris has him in the top 20. So Robbie Ray is, if he's not an ace, he's ace adjacent.
Yeah. I don't know if there's much else to add on that. Just the only thing I will bring up is, he's got a 2.68 ERA. His FIP is 3.45. His xFIP is 3.67. So, maybe due for some regression at some point. I'm not sure that he deserves, a mid-2s ERA. Maybe it's more like low to mid-3, something like that. But, I don't want to quibble too much. Robbie Ray has been awesome.
I don't think you should. No.
Yeah. And again, we rank him as a top 15 pitcher. So he's pretty awesome. Scott, happy 4th of July, man. What do you got going on this weekend? Anything fun?
Well, yeah, going on vacation. So
There you go.
I don't know if I wanted to tell everybody ahead of time, because maybe they'll tune out with me not here. No, they prefer Chris anyway.
No,
so
we're totally kidding. Scott's going to be back next week.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Where are you headed? Or you don't want to reveal that? Groupies following you around,
No place that amazing. Just somewhere else in Florida.
All right.
But I got a long drive ahead of me, so we got to wrap this thing up.
Yep, there you go. Let's keep things moving here. Hope everyone enjoys. Obviously, stay safe and enjoy all the baseball. We've got a bunch of day games. Look, I don't know what is going to happen in the Subway Series, but both the Yankees and Mets have been playing pretty terrible over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So I have no idea what's going to happen. It's probably going to be a crapshoot. Before we hit our first break, a reminder to listen to our 10-minute podcast, FBT Express. We had a prospect episode that came out yesterday. We have our weekly preview that's going to be in today's FBT Express feed. So make sure to download and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And big thanks to those watching us live. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube as well. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today, let's hit the news and notes, and some surprising news, I think. Corbin Carroll began a rehab assignment at the Arizona Complex League on Thursday, and apparently trying to return before the All-Star break. Seems pretty aggressive, Scott. He's dealing with a chip fracture in his wrist. I don't think the D-backs would put him in harm's way if this can, make the injury worse, but I've tried to play doctor on this podcast before, and I've failed many times. So
it's I think there is a tendency among fantasy analysts to overreact with injuries, to make them out to be a bigger deal than they are. I don't know exactly why. Maybe they're just playing it safe. Maybe they're just naturally glass half empty. I don't know. I try to counter that by maybe being too optimistic with injuries sometimes. But when it gets right down to it, each one is its own thing. And I would take this as very good news that Corbin Carroll, after only 3 weeks of being sidelined, is already beginning a rehab assignment.
Mentioned this before, but Max Muncy was placed on the IL with a bone bruise in his knee. That's Max Muncy of the Dodgers, of course. He will be sidelined at least 6 weeks, and it does stink because he's been so hot since putting those glasses on. Since the start of May, he's just been so good. Dave Roberts said that Tommy Edman will take grounders at third base. They plan to use Edman, Kike Hernandez, and Miguel Rojas at third. Like you said yesterday, Scott, it would be nice for fantasy if they would just play Edman at third. So Ha-Seong Kim.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
at second.
The fact Edman's taking grounders at third, I think, shows that's at least a possibility that Ha-Seong Kim could get a chance to apply his 360 batting average to a full-time role. Not that I think he's a 360 hitter in the long run. The exit velocities are pretty sad, but he should hit well enough and steal plenty of bases and obviously be a part of the Dodgers lineup. So that would be my preferred scenario. And it is probably worth celebrating. I don't know. 6 weeks is a long time. We only have 12 weeks left. So Muncy is going to miss at least half of the remaining season. But still, this seems like a minor miracle that he has no ligament damage on that play. I don't know if you saw the replay in slow motion, his leg bending sideways. It didn't look good.
I didn't see the actual play, but I saw the aftermath of him just laying there for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
All right,
But this is good. No ligament damage. Amazing.
We will have this question on our NFBC team where there's no IL spots. I mean, you just said it. Half the season is gone. If you don't have IL spots, do you drop Max Muncy?
Oh, well, it's a case by case basis. He had entered my top 12 at third base, what I thought was probably the clearest cut top 12 at any position, third base. Like, these 12 are great. Everyone else is not so great. So Muncy's great. And, it might depend on if your season plays out all the weeks, if it's a head-to-head league and you just got to fight for a playoff spot and you need every roster spot to do it. Okay, maybe you drop him then. But ideally, he's your third baseman again for the final 6 weeks.
Max Muncy replacements in fantasy: Addison Barger, who we already spoke about. Other names: Miguel Vargas, Royce Lewis, Jake Berger. Those are some in shallower leagues. And then in deeper leagues, Caleb Durbin has been hitting well. Same with Joey Ortiz, Nolan Gorman, if it's specifically home runs that you're looking for. And possibly Max Muncy of the Athletics. Replace one Muncy with another. Again, those are just some names for the deepest of leagues. The corresponding move for the Dodgers was they recalled Esteury Ruiz. Remember him with the Athletics? He's now with the Dodgers. 66 games at AAA. Hit 292 with 8 homers, 38 steals, 852 OPS. I don't see a place where he could play, Scott. I think it's just keep an eye on it because he was putting up some monster numbers in the minors.
Looking up the exit velocities, 85 mile per hour average exit velocity. That's going to be hard to overcome. Not impossible, but hard. That's really bottom of the league kind of stuff. He wasn't good enough to play for the Athletics, but now he's good enough to play for the Dodgers, or at least be a part of the Dodgers roster. We'll see how much Esteury Ruiz actually plays.
Yordan Alvarez was given 2 injections in his right hand after a specialist determined that he is dealing with inflammation. Matt Chapman is expected to begin a rehab assignment at AA on Friday. Clark Schmidt left early due to right forearm tightness and previously underwent Tommy John surgery back in 2017. And interesting timing, Scott, because if people listen to our FBT Express podcast that came out yesterday, you brought up Yankees prospect Cam Schlittler, who is a pitcher who has dominated the minors this season. He's made 5 starts at AAA. Now he is coming off his worst start of the season, unfortunately. Yeah. But if Clark Schmidt has to go on the IL, they might not really have a choice. I mean, they could go back to Alan Winans, but I don't know.
They could. Yeah. Schlittler is at AAA. As you said, he was doing great until his most recent start. And I believe he's 24, right? So he's at an age where, 24, where it's kind of like, okay, now's the time. Now's the time. You're not in the majors yet. You get to 24. If you're good, if the organization believes in you at all, it's probably time to give him a look. Yeah. They'll have to clear a 40-man spot because he's not on the 40-man roster yet. But I would say Cam Schlittler, if you're looking for a potential upside to play at starting pitcher, he fits the bill. He's 6'6", kind of the traditional 2-pitch power arsenal, fastball, slider, but he throws them like a combined 90% of the time. But they've both gained multiple miles per hour velocity this year. The sliders gained like 5 miles per hour velocity. It might be basically a different version of the slider because of how much velocity it's gained, but it averages about 90. And Schlittler is built for strikeouts, I would say.
Another prospect note here, the White Sox are promoting one of their top prospects, Colson Montgomery, on Friday. He's 23 years old.
We also talked about on that Fantasy Baseball Express podcast.
That's
playing all the hits.
First round pick back in 2021. Lots of ups and downs in his minor league career. He has hit under 220 2 years in a row. He has a 33% strikeout rate this year, but he has been performing lately. Previous 6 games before the call-up, 440 with 4 homers and a 1580 OPS. 12% rostered, Scott, for Colson Montgomery. Are you looking to add stash in any leagues right now?
It'd have to be pretty deep. I think the default expectation now when a hitting prospect gets called up is struggle bus. Like it's going to take a couple months really for him to find his footing. And that's for the highest end hitting prospects. Now, Colson Montgomery's been a pretty high-end prospect over the years, last 3 years, consensus top 50 guy. It's not the same as top 15, obviously, but it's not nothing. But he was pretty bad at AAA last year, got a pass for that, still being ranked so high, and then was terrible to start out this year. Strikeout rate was close to 40% about a month in, so we got sent to the complex league, like rookie ball, to work one-on-one with the hitting director, which I think it's worth noting. The same thing happened to Mackenzie Gore late in his minor league career, and obviously he managed to turn it around. So it's not like a death spiral, but it showed Montgomery was in a bad place. Now, since returning from that stint at rookie ball, the strikeout rate is still high. It's like 28%, but that's about what it was last year. So, hopefully it's a sign of improvement there from Montgomery, but it's really only the last week where he's gone off. He had a couple of 2-homer games just in the last week to Colson Montgomery. And seemed like maybe he was getting back on track. Guy, he produces big exit velocities, and for as much as he strikes out, the plate discipline profile is actually not that bad. So it's kind of surprising. Like by the data, Colson Montgomery looks like a stud, but the performance hasn't been there until just the last week. I'm surprised the White Sox are making this move, but I would, again, the default expectation struggles. I think that up goes double in Montgomery's case, given his recent history here in the minors.
Luis Ortiz of the Guardians is being investigated by Major League Baseball due to a possible gambling-related offense. He was placed on paid leave. Joey Cantillo was called up to take his spot in the rotation. And Cantillo does have strikeout upside. He also walks a lot. I think he's a name to watch in deeper leagues. He did start here on Thursday, 3 1/3 shutout with 5 strikeouts against the Cubs. 3% roster, does have RP eligibility, so just a name to watch. Let's see what happens with Joey Cantillo. Bo Bichette has missed 4 straight with right knee discomfort, but did appear in this game as a pinch hitter and then took over at shortstop, so hopefully ready to return on Friday. Max Scherzer has been cleared to start Saturday against the Angels. Kodai Senga will begin a rehab assignment either Saturday or Sunday and could return before the All-Star break. Sean Manaea will make one more rehab start Tuesday if all goes well. The Mets would like Manaea to make his season debut July 13th against the Royals. And speaking of the Mets,
the last day before the All-Star break.
That's exactly right. The Mets also placed Paul Blackburn on the IL with a right shoulder impingement. So they do need reinforcements right now. The Rays reinstated Ha-Sung Kim from the 60-day IL. He came over from the Padres this offseason, had shoulder surgery back in October. We know he could be a useful player in Roto. He's got a little pop. He's got some decent speed, 19% rostered. He's shortstop eligible on CBS. Scott, looking to add or stash Ha-Sung Kim anywhere right now?
Yeah, I'd pick him up over Colson Montgomery. I think he's obviously proven himself in the majors. That 2023 season, he played over his head. The power is not quite as I think he had 17 home runs that year. Power is not quite that good, but great base stealer, and he's going to be entering a good lineup. I assume he's going to play every day because the Rays have mostly been playing Taylor Walls, who can't hit it all, but is a great defender. Well, Ha-Seong Kim's a great defender too. So I imagine he'll just take over there.
Yeah, I like that as well. And just a reminder, this is Ha-Seong Kim, who formerly of the Padres, now on Tampa Bay. The other Kim is Hae-Sung Kim, but it's spelled Hye. Hae-Sung Kim, he's on the Dodgers. So just to clear that up for everybody. The Angels placed Christian Moore on the IL with a left thumb sprain. They promoted Chad Stevens, who is a 26-year-old who was crushing AAA, 307 batting average, 14 homers, 9 steals, 924 OPS. AL-only leagues, I think that's probably a name to know, Chad Stevens, but in no league shallower than that. Let's take a look at some waiver wire pitchers from Thursday's action. Scott, your boy, Jose Soriano, bounced back with a big start at your Atlanta Braves, 7 shutout with 7 strikeouts.
Who to root for?
Yeah, 13 whiffs on 101 pitches here. But obviously, nice bounce back after allowing 8 earned runs in his previous outing. And it looks like he does line up for 2 starts next week.
He does. I said Eury Perez is my number 2 sleeper pitcher for next week. Didn't I say that, or did I just think it? I think I said it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, the reason he's not number 1 is because Jose Soriano is after this start. This makes 3 out of 4 that were absolutely dominant. And then the 1 8-run disaster. But in that start, his velocity was down quite a bit across the board. So we're kind of scratching our heads over that. That means Soriano was looking at dealing with something physically that would take him out of the discussion in fantasy. Well, velocity was fine in this start against the Braves. And he continued to throw strikes at a higher than usual rate, 66%. He did not throw the slider much at all. So that was one of the things I was crediting for his recent dominance was featuring the slider more to play off his curveball. He only threw 5 sliders in this one. So he really just leaned on that curveball, but he threw a bunch of strikes. The velocity was good. And I think Jose Soriano himself is good. And 2 starts this week. One of them being a good matchup against the Rangers. Yeah, I like him.
And Soriano's up to 75% rostered. Same with Eury Perez. So only out there in some shallow leagues on CBS. But I checked Yahoo. They're both only 40% rostered in that format. And I'd imagine even more widely available in ESPN. So depending on where you play, take a look for those guys. What about Dustin May? He was awesome against the White Sox. 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts to 1 walk. Only had 10 whiffs on 86 pitches here. Velocity was up quite a bit, between 1.3 and 1.7 miles per hour on his sinker, fastball, and cutter. And just kind of changed the pitch mix up here. You know, he got away from the sinker. That is a pitch that gets hit very hard, through his 4-seam fastball more. And it was very good for Dustin May in this one. And he needed a good start. Previous 4 outings, a 6.43 ERA and a 1.71 whip. 75% rostered. So another one, just, shallow leagues at the Brewers next week. They're starting to hit better. So I think very clearly I would have Dustin May behind both Soriano and Eury Perez.
Yeah, I'm not sure Dustin May is as useful. I think he's very talented, but it always looks better. He's like an aesthetically pleasing pitcher rather than one who gets the kind of results you'd expect for as hard as he throws, as much movement as he has on his pitches. If he had enough innings to qualify, Dustin May would have the 6th lowest swinging strike rate in baseball. Yeah. And his ground ball rate isn't nearly as high this year as it's been in the past. And he's bad at throwing strikes. He issues a lot of walks. So I think Dustin May is a fine streamer, and I had him as one of the sleeper pitchers for this past week against the White Sox, the start he just had. But I'm not as enthusiastic about May overall as I am Soriano, who, by the way, I shortchanged just a minute ago. I said 3 of Soriano's past 4 starts were absolutely dominant. It was 4 of the last 5 were absolutely dominant. I left out the 12 strikeout game he had against the Athletics.
All right. Well, come on, Scott.
You were giving me some weird looks. I was afraid Robo Scott had appeared.
No.
Are we good?
No, you're all good. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a little choppy, but I think we're mostly all right here.
All right.
Couple other waiver wire pitchers here from Thursday. Jake Irvin turned in a quality start against the Tigers. 6 innings, 3 runs, 4 strikeouts. He also has a 4.71 ERA and a 1.29 WHIP. Cade Horton had the best start of his career. 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. Had 11 whiffs on 90 pitches. This one against the Guardians. I think you can stream almost anybody against the Guardians right now. They're just so bad offensively. Looking into Cade Horton's pitch mix, his secondary stuff looks really, really good. His sweeper and changeup, they look like elite pitches. The curveball looks serviceable. The problem is that his fastball just gets destroyed. So he's got to figure something out there. But I think there are the ingredients here for a good pitcher with Cade Horton, who is at the Twins next week. Maybe that could work out as well. And then Logan Evans pitched well for the Mariners up against the Royals, 5 2/3 shutout with 3 strikeouts. Much more deeper league name here, 8% rostered. But any of these names stand out, Scott? Logan Evans, Cade Horton, and Jake Irvin.
I mean, I don't know that we need to say much more about Jake Irvin. He's kind of been the same guy for 2 years now, and he'll have occasional good starts, but in the long run, pretty fringe. I agree that Cade Horton, look, he's a top prospect, obviously. So I don't think it's a stretch to say Cade Horton has a lot of upside here. And I think he is falling into the trap a lot of young pitchers do, where their fastball isn't that good, but they throw it a ton. He throws his fastball more than 50% of the time. And you need to have a good fastball to get away with that in the majors. So it's just a matter of him learning that and learning to feature his secondary arsenal more, which you point out is quite strong. Particularly, I want to point out the changeup in this start, since it was such a good outing for Cade Horton, 7 shutout innings. He threw his changeup more than twice as often as he had been, 24% versus 10%. It was responsible for 8 of his 11 whiffs in this start. That changeup entering this start against the Guardians had an 0.59 batting average against and a 61% whiff rate. So I think more than doubling its usage is a good plan for Cade Horton. And I'd like to see him do more of that.
Yeah, and he also did face a left-handed heavy lineup, so I think that contributed to him throwing the changeup more as well. But
that's another thing. Like, if your changeup is that good, you should probably just throw it against both-handed hitters. I was listening. Tom Glavine was the color commentator on a game I was watching recently, and he said, like, that was a turning point in his career. He'd always heard that his changeup, you only throw it against right-handed batters. Obviously, he was a left-handed pitcher. Only throw it against right-handed batters. And just one day he was like, look, this is my best pitch. I'm just going to throw it against anybody. And Hall of Fame eventually opened its doors to him.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the interesting thing with Cade Horton is his slider was supposed to be regarded as his best pitch, right? I don't know that we thought too much of the changeup here, but yeah, I think throwing the fastball less and throwing those secondary pitches more could be a nice recipe here for Cade Horton. Let's quickly run through some waiver wire hitters. And Xavier Edwards, 2 for 4 with 2 runs and his 15 steal. He is 70% rostered out there in a few leagues, but in 27 games since returning, he's hitting .324, only 4 steals. I know we talked about this guy, but we just need more speed, man. More speed from Xavier Edwards.
Yeah. Yep, we do.
I was hoping you would take over there.
He's been hitting a lot better. It's hard to project anybody to be a guy who hits 300 plus regularly, which obviously Edwards did. He hit 328 as a rookie last year, and he hit .330 at AAA Jacksonville that same year prior to his promotion. The year before, Jacksonville, he hit .351. Easier to do in the minors where defenses are much worse. But then he came up to the majors and hit .328, like I said. So, we had some hope that Xavier Edwards could be that true and very rare standout in batting average. And he hasn't been in his sophomore season. He's been fine. He's probably batting close to 290 after this game, right? But if he's only going to hit 280, 290, then with as a guy with zero power, he's got to be an elite base stealer, and he's merely been a decent base stealer this year. So yeah, let's see those steals pick up as the batting average has picked up here recently.
Yeah, he's up to 286 overall. That is Xavier Edwards. Who do you prefer between the Marlins, Xavier Edwards or Otto Lopez?
Well, I mean, Otto Lopez has been better recently. I will point out this stat. So over his past 25 games, 296 with 4 homers and 4 steals. That makes him top 5 both at second base and shortstop and points leagues during that stretch. So Lopez has been more useful, particularly over the last month or so. But I do think Xavier Edwards has more upside for fantasy in either format because he doesn't strike out much for points leagues. And if he does go on like a 50 steal pace from this point forward, that's going to add up to a lot of points. I don't think Lopez has that ability.
Mm-hmm. I think in a points league, I would go with Otto Lopez. And yeah, I mean, it's probably situational. Like if you just need speed, obviously Xavier Edwards makes sense. But I think anywhere else, I think Otto Lopez, he's just more well-rounded right now. And I'd take him in a points league as well. But it is close between those two. Speaking of teammates, what about Rockies? Tyler Freeman stayed hot 2 for 4 with his 12th stolen base. And he is 30% rostered, widely available, second base and outfield eligible. And Thairo Estrada doing his thing, 3 for 4 with his second home run, 4 RBI. He is now batting .317. He's got the OPS up to 775. Does have 1 steal. Would like to see a little bit more speed out of him. But Scott, both guys producing right now. Who do you prefer between those two if you just need a middle infielder somewhere? Tyler Freeman or Thairo Estrada?
Freeman. I do think Estrada has more over-the-fence power, but I don't think he has a lot of over-the-fence power. And I think I think his batting average is more inflated than Tyler Freeman's right now. And I think Freeman's the better base stealer by a substantial margin, maybe at this point. I know Thairo Estrada had a couple 20 steal seasons with the Giants, but he hasn't shown as much inclination to do that in either of the past 2 years.
And last name here for deeper leagues, Michael Conforto, maybe turning things around last 7 games, hitting .276, 3 homers, 8 RBIs. So if you play in very deep 5 outfielder leagues where you really just need someone that's playing, we thought Conforto would be good. Terrible start. Maybe it's happening now. So might want to give him a look in those very deep 5 outfielder leagues. Let's take our final break. When we return, I've got some names I want to throw at Scott. Players I believe are about to light it up. Does Scott agree? Find out right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. This is my kind of cheesy segment take on 4th of July. Haha, players about to light it up. Here we go. I did have Eury Perez on this list, but we spoke about him earlier. I think that one's pretty obvious. And Corey Seager. But man, I have mentioned Corey Seager so much in the past.
He's kind of started to light it up, right?
Yeah, he already has. So I might have cheated for a few of these players, but you let me know, Scott. I'll throw the player at you. And you hit me with a thumbs up or thumbs down. I'll let people know on the audio listening side.
Is that all I have to do? I don't have to say anything?
Yeah, of course. You can say whatever you want. Go ahead. This is a podcast, Scott. Go for it.
You said you'd let them know.
The first one.
Okay.
This one's pretty obvious, but Austin Riley, man. I know it's been an underwhelming season to this point. I think he's about to go off. He is still hitting the ball very hard. Historically, July and August have been his best months by OPS. Scott, I think it's about to happen. I think Austin Riley is about to just blow people away. What do you think?
That's a thumbs up. That's a thumbs up. I agree. I just wrote, was it this week? Yeah, it was just this week. About 12 struggling studs here at the approximate halfway point, which ones I still believe in, which ones I'm losing faith in. Austin Riley was one of those I still believe in. You gave a lot of the reasoning already, but to give the exact numbers, in July and August, his whole career, July and August, 290 hitter with a 910 OPS. All the other months, 263 hitter with a 793 OPS, which is, by the way, pretty close to how his numbers look right now. So, yeah, I think that, look, the strikeout rate is up for Austin Riley this year too, and maybe it stays up and he doesn't have as big of a July and August as he's had in the past. It's possible, but I would bet on him finishing the year stronger than he started it.
Mm-hmm. I did make the swap here finally in my rankings, though, and I don't know. We'll see if maybe Austin Riley makes me regret it, but I put Junior Caminero ahead of Austin Riley rest of season, so we'll see. Kind of hedging my bet here. I do like Austin Riley to break out of this, though. What about Mike Trout? Always an injury risk. We know that, but he's batting just 231, 785 OPS. He's been kind of middling, but 92.4 average exit velocity, his highest since 2019. The expected stats look awesome here. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy, Scott, but just based on the data, I think Mike Trout's about to do it. What do you think?
So, yeah, he's got the 275 XBA, the 559 X slug. How is he underperforming? Well, his pull air rate is way down. That's it. That's always the explanation. It's probably not always the explanation, but that's usually the explanation when a player is underperforming, a hitter is underperforming his expected stats by that much. Doesn't mean his pull air rate's going to remain down. I mean, that stat is, I assume, is susceptible to change as any other, but it does explain why you have to look a little beyond the expected stats. I don't know. Maybe they should rework that expected stat formula to factor that in. Seems like a important piece of information there, StatCast. I'll also note for Mike Trout, this is his 4th year in 5 with a 28% strikeout rate. That's something that might catch a lot of people by surprise. He's become a big strikeout guy. Yeah, I mean, I would guess Trout's numbers improve from here. I don't think we can count on him being a stud, in large part because his season could end any day.
True.
We've all experienced that, but I see him as must start while he's healthy still.
Okay, so is that kind of like a thumb in the middle?
Yeah, I forgot the whole thumb thing. Yeah, it was kind of wavering, and then I went boom. Thumbs up.
All right, Scott's in. This one, I think you're going to buy in as well. Mentioned the name recently. Roman Anthony. He's hitting 200 with 1 homer, 1 steal, 637 OPS. Underlying plate discipline metrics still look very impressive here. 93.9 average exit velocity and a 13% barrel rate. That is despite a 56% ground ball rate. So when he manages to put the ball in the air, it's good contact. We got to get this ground ball rate down a little bit. Struggle with that in the minors. I think it's going to happen any day now, Scott. I think Roman Anthony's having a big second half.
His name is Roman. His name's Roman. We're doing the whole, gladiator thing with thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, thumbs up for Roman Anthony as well. And look, I don't even really care what the numbers are. They could be anything. I just think for a hitting prospect of this calendar, 2 months minimum. You got to give him 2 months minimum to show something. And in Anthony's case, it may take far less than that.
All right, we might have found our first thumbs down here. We'll see. Jason Dominguez has been having some nice at-bats lately. I've been watching him very closely. He went 4 for 5 with his 13th steal here on Thursday. Last 7 games, he's hitting .452 with 3 steals. Only has 6 home runs in the season. That is a bummer, but he has 13 steals now, as I mentioned. I think the Yankees should give him a look at leadoff. They've been using kind of Grisham, at least versus right-handed pitching. He's terrible against lefties. and they have Goldschmidt for that. And they're looking to shake things up. I think we could get a big second half, Scott. What do you think? Jason Dominguez, am I reaching?
Yeah. Now, you could argue he's a big prospect like Roman Anthony, maybe not quite as big as Roman Anthony, but pretty close. And so why don't I give him the same benefit of the doubt? And it's because he's playing 2 out of 3 games. That's it. And I mean, the way that's happened to Ben Rice, the way that's happened to even Cody Bellinger, right? He's not playing as consistently as he should. He would in most situations. And it's only become more crowded since Giancarlo Stanton returned. It would help if Dominguez was performing better. This performance, this 4-hit game is kind of in isolation. Strikeout rate is very high. The pull air rate is very low. He's a guy in development, so I'm not saying, Jason Dominguez doesn't have a bright future still. I think he does, but I just don't think he's set up to be much of a fantasy asset this year. I don't know what happened to wasn't Trent Grisham headed to the IL? I don't know what happened there. He pulled a Hunter Goodman on us.
Yeah. And then he returned and started and let off on Thursday. So it's just like, Grisham has kind of slowed down. I know he hit a home run in either this game or the other day, but I don't know.
It's possible. I'm not going to invest a lot of fantasy capital in Jason Dominguez. I don't even think he's must roster. Even in 5 outfielder leagues, I wouldn't call him must roster.
I hear that. I don't know. Maybe this is like a homer thing for me. It's kind of a feel thing too. Again, it's like watching him. His at bats are just getting better. I've noticed it. So I wonder if the Yankees will notice and maybe give him a shot at leading off or whatever it might be, or just playing more. That would be nice too. This one, I'm cheating with this one a little bit, Scott, because he's kind of already turned it around, but I think he's going to turn it around even more. And that is Grant Holmes, who over his last 4 starts has a 1.57 ERA, 14.1 K per 9. The problem is that he has a 1.30 WHIP and 5 walks per 9 during that time. But if you look at his location plus on Fangraphs, it's actually 101, which is above league average. I don't think that his command is actually this bad. I know it has been this year. Maybe, as a starter, it is harder for him to locate his pitches. That's totally possible. But at least based on the location plus metric, I think the control is going to get better, Scott. And I think the whip will get better. And obviously the strikeouts have been tremendous. So I kind of think it's all going to come together here for Grant Holmes in the second half.
So let me look at a couple things here before I rule. So you said last 4 starts, 19.1% swinging strike rate, which is insane. That would be a record if he could sustain that over a full season, 19.1 for Grant Holmes. I traced the turnaround to May 2nd, which is going back 12 starts. And that's really when the slider clicked for Grant Holmes. He had his first 9 strikeout game. By the way, he has a total of 5 games with 9 strikeouts or more now, does Grant Holmes, which is crazy. So since then, in those 12 starts, a 15% swinging strike rate, which would have led the majors last year. So it's still really good. It seems like it's pretty much just that slider. Sometimes he mixes in a curveball that plays off of it, but that just seems like a ridiculous pitch for Holmes. And so maybe he has to stay out of the strike zone. Like he commands pretty well, but he just can't live in the strike zone that much since his arsenal is so limited. I don't know. It's sort of like Mike Trout, where I'm fine with him as he is, but I don't really see him getting better. He might get better just because his last 12 starts are more indicative than his season line. So I'll give him, slight thumbs up here, Grant Holmes.
All right, what about Sandy Alcantara? Last 5 starts, it's a 4.34 ERA, 1.14 WHIP. That also includes a 7 earned run outing last time out. But the control has been much better, 1.6 walks per 9 during that span, 106 stuff plus, 108 location plus. I think maybe he can be reinvigorated by a trade here. So what do you think, Scott? Sandy Alcantara, big second half.
A trade would change things. Obviously, his supporting cast is terrible. I don't think a trade's a foregone conclusion, but there aren't going to be many sellers, is my read on things. And so the Marlins might be able to take advantage of that and get a really juicy return for Alcantara. Yeah, the control's been better. Sorry, cough came out of nowhere. Control's been better, and I think that's the biggest key. But he's I know he's a former Cy Young winner. I've always felt like Sandy Alcantara for fantasy isn't quite as good as the reputation he has. So look, it's more likely he gets better than worse from here. So I'll give him a thumbs up, but it's not with a lot of gusto.
All right, last two names on the list. Reese Olson looks like he was breaking out before this injury, but he's returning today here on July 4th. 296 ERA, 117 whip. He gets whiffs, over a strikeout per inning. He gets ground balls. All the underlying metrics seem to like Reese Olson. And the other name is Chad Patrick. So much deeper league name. I don't even know if he's going to, be in the Brewers rotation next time he's supposed to pitch. But last 30 days, I was just kind of messing around with some leaderboard stuff. He is 16th in swinging strike rate and 11th in stuff plus during that time.
Yeah.
So just kind of intrigued me there on Chad Patrick. What do you think about him and Reese Olson maybe having big second halves?
Yeah, well, the last time we talked about Chad Patrick, I was saying I think I kind of like him now, because back when he was sustaining a low ERA, but it seemed like he was overperforming. Like he didn't have much going on apart from the low ERA. Well, the ERA started to rise, but so has the swinging strike rate. He's missing a lot more bats now. You gave the number already. I will tell you that in his last 8 starts, a 13% swinging strike rate, which is, kind of a top 15-ish rate, and 66% strike rate, which is also very good. So I think there's something to like here with Chad Patrick. I do think he'll retain his spot in the Brewers rotation. I give him a thumbs up. I think people are sleeping on him, and I give Reese Olson a thumbs up too. I've always been a big fan of him, and he was doing great before the injury.
All right, let's get into our Week 16.
So
preview.
only one thumbs down, right?
Yeah, for my Yankees.
Kind of...
Come on, man. Jeez. What's that about, Scott? Come on.
I am a charitable Caesar.
All right. Well, we're on the same page. That's good. Hopefully those players can start to pick things up here. Now it's time for the Week 16 preview, brought to you by Travis Matthew, apparel designed for confidence and comfort no matter where the day takes you. And the schedule for next week, we have 20 teams with 6 games, 10 teams with 7 games, including the D-backs, Red Sox, White Sox, Reds, Guardians, Angels, Marlins, Padres, Rays, and Rangers. What about the Rockies? They have 6 games. All of them are on the road. Sorry. Starter sit these 2 start pitchers.
Just an interesting quirk about the schedule this week, the last week before the All-Star break. Every single team is spending either the entire week at home or the entire week on the road, including the Rockies on the road, obviously. Reds, by the way, at home.
All right. You do like that.
Athletics at home.
You like that for their hitters, not necessarily their pitchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Starter sit these 2 star pitchers, and look, some of these names might seem ridiculous that I'm even asking, Scott, but we keep getting questions about them. So let's answer. Dylan Cease gets the D-backs and Phillies.
Must start.
Clay Holmes at the Orioles, at the Royals. I believe he has 4+ walks in 3 straight.
Yeah, it's been a little shaky lately, but these are 2 juicy matchups. So I have Clay Holmes in the must start section of the pitcher rankings. I should probably elaborate on Cease a little bit, since I'm sure a lot of people would rather not start him. You just got to take the good with the bad with him. You just have to. And so, if you start picking and choosing, you're gonna miss out on a lot of the good starts that make up for the bad ones he's already accumulated. Like the talent is still there, clearly.
Yeah. I mean, if you bench him, you could miss out on 15 innings, 3 runs allowed, 20 strikeouts next
You
week.
could. Yeah, you could.
It's entirely possible. What about Tanner Bybee? Kind of similar situation, up and down season at Houston, at the White Sox.
Again, really good matchups. I think Bybee's must start for this week.
This one's interesting. Jack Flaherty, he's been frustrating lately. He gets Tampa Bay, who last time he faced them, he got absolutely demolished. Also gets the Mariners. Their lineup hasn't been, that good. But he's prone to giving up home runs, and Cal Raleigh is on the Mariners, so I don't know. What are you doing with Flaherty against Tampa Bay and Seattle?
The Mariners are actually in the top half of the league in runs scored. So, and so are the Blue Jays now, by the way. They've moved up a lot. I don't have Jack Flaherty as a must-start 2-start pitcher, but I have him at the top of the second tier, which means you're probably going to start him. I could see how in a roto league, if you're protecting ratios, you might not, but even then I probably would.
What about Noah Cameron, who gets the Pirates and the Mets?
I would leave him for points leagues.
Jeffrey Springs, home against the Braves and Blue Jays.
Also leave him for points leagues. Like I said, that Blue Jays matchup isn't as good as it was. And both of those starts for Jeffrey Springs in Sacramento, which is tied with Coors Field, according to the overall park factor rating, tied with Coors Field for most hitter-friendly park this year.
What about your boy, Andre Palante, against the Nationals and the Braves?
I could see starting him in a points league.
All right. And Will Warren against the Mariners and the Cubs.
I think after as bad as that last start was, particularly with the Cubs being one of the two matchups here, I'd shy away from Will Warren, not to be confused with Will Wheaton or Warren Wallace. Remember that kid?
No. Who's Will Wheaton? Who's Warren Wallace? Who are these people?
Will Wheaton is an actor. He was on Star Trek and also The Big Bang Theory. It was kind of a recurring joke about how much Sheldon hated Will Wheaton. Somebody out there gets it. It was a highly watched show.
Not by me, obviously.
No.
What about 2-star pitchers to add and stream? We've already referenced a few of these names. Who are the 5 that you have?
The 5 that I have. Okay, so I have Jose Soriano. Obviously, 4 of his last 5 starts, great. He gets the Rangers and the Diamondbacks, so one good matchup, one not so good. Eury Perez, 2 pretty good matchups here. At Cincinnati, so a tough place to pitch, but also at Baltimore, which is also a tough place to pitch, but the Orioles haven't produced much this year, and Perez just had this breakthrough start. We have not talked about Brady Singer yet, who is not that exciting, but perfectly cromulent pitcher. And Marlins and Rockies are his matchups this week. Rockies, again, not at Coors Field. So it's hard to imagine that going poorly for Brady Singer. Nick Martinez, I'm not totally sure he's a cromulent pitcher, but he gets those same matchups, Miami and Colorado. So at least in points leagues, especially with the relief pitcher eligibility there for Nick Martinez, I think you got to do it. And then finally, Brian Bayo, he gets the Rockies on the road as well and has been pitching much better with that new cutter of late. Second matchup is against the Rays, and I believe that's in Tampa Bay. No, it's not. It's in Boston. But even so, tough matchup for Bayo their second time, which is why he's a little lower on the list.
All right, who are the 1-star streamers that you're looking at for next week?
Lucas Giolito gets those road Rockies. So I think he's a must. Mitch Keller, coming off his best start of the season, gets the Royals, who are still dead last in runs scored. Gotta love that for Keller. Ryan Nelson, been great of late, spamming that fastball. The Padres are now 23rd in runs scored, and that's who Ryan Nelson is facing. Edward Cabrera, maybe he's good after all. At Baltimore, it's a good matchup. And finally, somebody who didn't look so good here on Thursday, but I think he got coursed. And that's Brandon Walter. His pitches didn't have their usual movement at Coors, which you'd expect, but still an elite ground ball rate, very high, very good control. pretty good whiff rate on multiple pitches. I think against Cleveland, who, as you mentioned, good start, good matchup for everybody these days. I would consider rolling the dice on Brandon Walter. A couple other pitchers facing Cleveland this week who didn't crack my top 10 here. Sean Burke of the White Sox. He's actually a 2-star pitcher. First start is against Blue Jays, second against Cleveland. Lance McCullers and Shane Smith. Of course, we've featured McCullers and Smith plenty in this segment this year, but they've both been so bad recently that I couldn't bring myself to put them in the top 10. They are facing Cleveland in week 16, though.
All right, what about the hitters? Best matchups for next week. We have the Reds, Marlins, Blue Jays, Mets, and Guardians. The worst hitter matchups, Yankees, Tigers, Phillies, Padres, and Pirates. Scott, who are your sleeper hitters for week 16?
A lot of Reds, a lot of Marlins, understandably, since they have the best 2 matchups. Top of the list, Austin Hayes, still only 51% rostered somehow. Had 3 IL stints, so that probably explains it. But in between those IL stints, Austin Hayes, head-to-head points per game, 12th best among outfielders. And that's not even his best format, head-to-head points, right? So take advantage of those good matchups. Marlins, Rockies, Austin Hayes. A little further down the list, but I'll stick with them since it's the same team. Spencer Steer, who did he had his hand X-rayed. But it came back negative, and he was lobbying to get back in the lineup right away. So I think he'll be fine for next week. He's been hot lately. Spencer Steer taking advantage of those matchups next week. Matt McClain also been hot lately, so he's on this list. Addison Barger, the show comes full circle. I have him. I just think he's undervalued. White Sox, Athletics, and those games against the Athletics are in Sacramento. So Barger, big week ahead. The Marlins, I mentioned I got a few of those. I got Kyle Stowers, who's been hot lately. Otto Lopez, who we talked about. Xavier Edwards, who we talked about. Stowers does have the misfortune of facing 3 lefties. There are 3 lefties on the schedule, but as hot as he's been, he might play against 1 or 2 of them. And the Marlins have 7 games total. Second best matchups, as I mentioned. Josh Lowe is on this list just because he's hot and under-rostered. Who else? Luis Garcia. The Nationals weren't among the 5 best matchups, but they have the 6 best matchups and 0 lefties. So good time to start Luis Garcia. And finally, the Mets. You mentioned, Frank, they have the 4th best matchups and 1 lefty on the schedule, which will help McNeil.
All right, that was the weekly preview brought to you by Travis Matthew, apparel designed for confidence and comfort no matter where the day takes you. And here we are. Check out this floral print. Got my little American flag here all ready for the 4th of July. This is legitimately the softest polo I've ever owned. It is great for the summertime. Scott, checking out that polo over there. That's similar to the one that I wore last week. Not exactly the same, but it feels
It's not
great.
exactly the same. I thought it was exactly the same. I got to tell you, like it looks, most shirts, I would say, look better on the rack than on the person. This shirt looks better on the person than on the rack. And I got to say, like, every time I put on one of these Travis Matthews shirts, my wife says the same thing. She sees me, she's like, that's a nice shirt. Like, kind of surprised that I wouldn't be dressed like a schlub for once. So, it has an effect.
There you go. Love it. Big thanks to Travis Matthew for making clothes for any occasion that are not only comfy, but stylish as well. Let's wrap up with some leftovers here, Scott. On the hitting side, Agustin Ramirez hit his 13th home run. We've got the roster rate all the way up to 84%. Finally, thank you, people, for listening. Cam Smith stayed hot, 3 for 5 with a double, a triple, and 3 RBI. Last 21 games, he's hitting .386 with 4 home runs and an OPS over 1,000. Cam Smith has arrived. Spencer Torkelson heating back up last 7 games. He's got 3 home runs. He's batting .370. James Wood cannot be stopped. 5 for 5 with his 23rd home run. Zach Neto with a bit of a wake-up game here. 3 for 5 with a sock and a shoe. He did not have a hit since returning from that shoulder injury, so nice to see him get back on track. Your boy, Jurickson Profar, make it 2 for 2, back-to-back games with a home run. Since returning, he's all the way up to 79% rostered. And
the Jurickson store called.
Brandon Nimmo has been on quite the tear as well. Back-to-back days with a homer. I didn't realize it went back this far. Last 35 games for Brandon Nimmo. 309, 9 homers, 7 steals, OPS over 900. So he has been awesome. Anybody stand out here, Scott? Anything you'd like to add?
I did notice Agustin Ramirez is up to 84% rostered. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yep.
You did mention that. Well, I reinforced it. All right. Because I wanted to put him in the sleeper hitters and I couldn't. Jurickson profile is looking good. I think that's the biggest takeaway here. Get him if you still can. Get him while he's hot. The Jurickson store. It's running out of stock.
And then on the pitching side, David Peterson bounced back with a quality start against the Brewers. 6 2/3, 2 runs with 4 strikeouts. He allowed 5 earned runs in back-to-back starts before this one. So nice to see him back on track. And Seth Lugo, another quality start at the Mariners. 6 1/3, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 101 pitches. And maybe the best the curve has looked this season. 3 whiffs, 50% whiff rate. The velocity was up a little bit on that pitch. And Seth Lugo has now allowed 1 earned run or fewer in 5 straight. He has 7+ strikeouts in 4 of those. So here we are, Scott. Anything to add on Lugo and David Peterson?
Nice bounce back for Peterson. Still great ground ball skills. I think he's still a nice high floor pitcher, but not a ton of ceiling there. The whip's going to run high. Seth Lugo, I know Chris talked about him as a sell high last time he came up, and I get the thought process. I mean, he's overachieving by even more than he did last year. The ball's getting hit harder. He's missing fewer bats. I think the walks are up too. So the expected stats are even worse than, or the ERA estimator is even worse for Lugo than last year. I just don't know that anybody's going to buy that high on him, you know? Like coming off the year he did where he was basically an ace in fantasy, he was still like the 40th pitcher drafted. So yeah, he's been solid, but I think I wouldn't be afraid of trading him if the right offer came, but I'm inclined to just ride it out probably.
And I totally get the process for wanting to sell high on Lugo, but I just think he might be one of these weird pitchers that can just outperform his numbers. And there's no way
you got 11 pitches, you know?
Yeah, there's no way for us to know that until, all right, we get to the end of the season. And what do you know? Seth Lugo did it again. But look, based on everything that we normally look at, Seth Lugo should be a sell high, but he's also just kind of a weird pitcher. So I don't know, man. If I have him, I'm probably just holding on to him and starting him. Call to the bullpen for the Rockies. Seth Halverson recorded the final 4 outs for his 7th save. He did allow a run on 3 hits in the process. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz struck out 2 for his 18th save. For the Blue Jays, Jeff Hoffman allowed a hit, but picked up his 21st save. He has pitched in 4 of the past 5 days. So lots of usage here for Jeff Hoffman. And for the Royals, Carlos Estevez got the final 4 outs for his 24th save. He did allow a run on 3 hits, but has been one of the most reliable closers all season.
Mm-hmm.
To stream or not to stream on Friday, we have Giolito at the Nationals, Soroka on the other side against the Red Sox, Kumar Rocker at the Padres, Slade Ciccone against the Tigers, Charlie Morton at the Braves, Eduardo Rodriguez home against the Royals, and Adrian Hauser at the Rockies.
I think Eduardo Rodriguez, number 1 with a bullet here. He was one of my sleeper pitchers coming into the week. If you need a second and third choice, I would go Giolito and Soroka, but they're a distant second and third.
I do agree with those names as well. What about on Saturday? Really just 3 names that stand out for me. Chad Patrick at the Marlins.
Love that. Love that. He was also a sleeper pitcher coming into this week.
Yeah, these other 2 I do not like nearly as much, but Jack Leiter coming off a good start at the Padres. You know, they don't swing and miss very much.
It's okay.
And Dean Kramer at the Braves.
They've been getting shut out a lot lately, so it might work out. It's dangerous. They might drop a random 7-8 runs, which they have a tendency to do, which is why they're in the positive for run differential.
And then on Sunday, we have Trevor Rogers at the Braves as well. Edward Cabrera home against the Brewers, and Jacob Lopez against the Giants.
Yeah. I don't really want to do Trevor Rogers at Atlanta. But Edward Cabrera against the Brewers and Jacob Lopez against the Giants. I'd rather play it safe for Lopez because the pixie dust may have dissipated here for him. But Edward Cabrera against the Brewers feels relatively safe.
All right. Happy 4th of July to everyone out there. Scott, enjoy the weekend. Stay safe, everybody, please. We're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.
One of us will.